I understand you've got some theories about the first word, the first word we say. Do you want to elaborate on that, explain what your theory is, what your position is?
Yeah, sure. The first word is quite significant to us as humans, and it's something that isn't really discussed very much. But the first word, by its very nature, is different from other words. So if you think about words that we use on a daily basis to describe our everyday subjects, we always use words to refer to things. So I will always be using my word to communicate to you about a subject, be it a phone, a pen, the chair, are we going to meet, how do you feel? We're always referring to specific details of our environment or self. The thing about the first word is that because it was the first, it was our only communicative device. Now, because it was the only communicative device, that would mean that it would have to agreeably and acceptably refer to absolutely everything. So, because it was the only word we had, that's alright, because it was the only word we had, it would have to agreeably refer to all of these things. So at the moment we have different words for pen, for phone, for feelings, for thoughts, for the environment, but for the first word there could be only one. That word would have to agreeably refer to all those things. So it makes it massively significant. The other interesting thing about the first word is that it must have been the same for all humans. So at the moment we have developed and differentiated languages that have all stemmed from whichever root cause, but originally we would have had only that one word. Just like all sheep can be roughly defined by their ba sound, or all dogs bark, all horses make roughly the same sound. These, if you could imagine that for a sheep, ba was its word for just about everything, and all its other sounds derived from that particular sound. It's the same for us, where we would have had one original word or one original sound that all our languages, all our words, all our details would have stemmed from. It kind of, just looking at it like that is a bit like, okay, so what? It's an interesting curiosity. But if you think about, certain words have more power than other words, depending on how we use them. So obviously if I'm talking about a pen, it doesn't matter how worked up I am about the pen or how worked up I am about you. Using the word pen is never ever going to carry much weight. It's never really going to cause much harm or much good. But if we talk about things which are a bit more charged, things which seem to refer to subjects which have power in themselves, so ideas of love or anger or hate, if we are using words with love or anger or hate, they're sort of like qualitatively different from the pen. So okay, let's take love for example. If I can use love to talk about cheese, I can talk about food that I love, or I can talk about my close loved ones, my friends and family and things like that. Now obviously if I'm referring to my love of cheese, then there's not going to be a lot of imbued power there. But if I'm sharing my feeling of love about somebody, or my hate or my anger, and I align with the idea of anger or the idea of hate, then the word becomes much more charged, and so does its effect. And we use this all the time. Now what's interesting here is that if there is a word which refers to everything at the same time, what would be the quality, or what would be the potential power that one would be aligned with if they were able to align with that idea in the same way that we can align with love and feel love, and we can align with anger and feel anger? What would happen if we can align with absolutely everything at the same time and feel everything at the same time? Are these not the ideas that we have of at-one-ment or enlightenment or divine union?
And what do you think that word is?
Well,
because
yeah,
it's been conspicuous by its absence.
It has been conspicuous, yeah, that's very true. For humans, our first word, which is the word from the beginning, so the word from the beginning of our species is the word goo. So just like monkeys go oo, sheep go ba, our word in our animalistic consciousness was goo. So we could refer to everything as goo, 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 and it would be correct, and it would always be correct. Now it's funny here because to me goo is the first and the last word. Now the reason it's the last word as well is that we have, in our development of consciousness, goo has become other words, it's become languages, it's become different ideas, and what we've done is we've moved away from our union with goo, and we have come up with all these other definitions for our environment, all these other words, like some of the words I used earlier, but then obviously all our words for the energy of the environment, for molecules, for cells, for our bodies, for our thoughts, for our feelings, for our spiritual awareness. We have all these different terms, but really the word goo is still perfectly acceptable for all those things. So when you're looking at the bacteria in a petri dish, if you're a scientist, or you're looking at the life in the oceans, or you're looking at the stars hanging pendant in the sky, no matter where you look in our environment, no matter what level of detail we go to, no matter how much we hack it up, the best summation we can ever have for any of it is, it's goo. So I feel that we've come full circle in our consciousness, full circle in our mental awareness anyway. And this, for me, is where the first word is also the last word, but it's the last word on matter and the substance of things. And this is where we can't help but start to get a little bit religious. Because obviously, if we are talking about something that refers to all that is and everything, something that is in everything and that is everything, which is what goo is. Goo is, you know, you cut me open and goo is going to fall out. You know, we analyse the molecular structure of this chair and the air around it, and it's a seamless goo. It's a seamless movement of molecules, energy, subatomic particles, all these terms that we have. But essentially, what we're still talking about is that this is goo. And it, you know, it's simple. It really is simple. It's comical, it's liberating, it's all of these things. But it then becomes much, much more when you start to look at it in more depth. For me, goo is both the most complex thing in the world, but it's also the simplest thing in the world. So we're talking about it from the simple side of it. But it does get much, much more complicated if somebody wants to look at it in more detail.
For me, it strikes me like, well, a good analogy would be looking at a digital photograph, and you can look at it and it just looks like a replica of real life, and then the closer you go in, you see that it's all made up of just single pixels, and that's the building block, but they're all pixels fundamentally.
Yeah.
Whether they're different colours, but they're all pixels.
Yeah.
Am I right in thinking?
Yeah. I mean, because there is no thing that is not goo. There is no thing that, and the idea of a picture is a good example. In fact, modern science would to tie it more into modern science, it would probably be better to think of a hologram, because in a hologram the picture is replicated perfectly in every pixel. So if you take your idea of a picture and you know, you broke that picture down, you would have the different parts of the picture, but you wouldn't know what the whole picture was until you reassembled it. So that's a digital photograph. With a hologram, if you break it down into its constituent parts, the whole hologram is still visible in the one individual section. It may be just a little bit more blurred and less defined. And what scientists have found actually is that if you take a hologram, the more you break it down into smaller parts, it still contains the whole image, the whole picture and the whole story, but it's a bit more blurred and not quite as well defined.